introduction, and thank you all for being here. As Christine said, I've been involved in the We the People program a long time, and in fact, I was first introduced to it by Judge Pro when I was a law clerk for him right out of law school, and he asked his law clerks to come and judge the We the People competition. And I have to say, I wasn't real excited at that time about getting up early on a Saturday morning to go do that. But ever since the first time that I had the opportunity to judge this competition, I fell in love with it. And every year, I go out of my way to make sure I'm here because it's so important and so inspiring to see the hard work that our students and our teachers and our parents and everyone else does to make this happen. But most importantly, what I love about this program is that the students get what I consider to be the highest level of education on the topic of our Constitution. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, earlier in your education, you started to learn about the government, and maybe you learned about 3 branches of government. And maybe then you moved along and you learned a little about, okay, what's the First Amendment, what's the Fourth Amendment, etc. But in this program, you don't just memorize facts. You learn what these provisions of the Constitution really mean, how they've been interpreted by the courts, how they actually apply in real life, and even to current day situations. And you learn how to do that analysis, to apply these principles from many years ago and apply them to present situations. And finally, and I think most importantly, you have learned to form your own opinions about them. So you know what courts have said about it and how to interpret it, but you get to, as part of our country, have your own opinions. Do you agree that this should be in the Constitution or not? Do you agree whether the courts have interpreted it correctly or not? And those are important pieces to have as you move on to be citizens of this great country, right? Some of you maybe will use this information and become lawyers. Great. Maybe some of you will run for office and be policymakers or somehow work in developing policy, and that's all wonderful, and I know many of you will do something like that. But even if you don't, and that's not where you think your career path is taking you, you are educated people who will be educated citizens and voters. So when you hear candidates talking about what they want to do and why you should vote for them, you have the skills to evaluate what they say. Does what they're saying make sense? Do you agree with them? Is that something you support or not? You can evaluate information and determine, is it backed up by evidence? Because something else you've certainly learned in this program is to not just have conclusions, but have support for those conclusions. And you can evaluate whether something someone is saying to you makes sense and is supported by facts and evidence. And if I could put in a little plug for the court system, you also, after you turn 18, will be eligible to be jurors in our court system. And I know a lot of people moan and groan and aren't real happy when they get that jury summons. I totally understand that. But you folks know how important it is that we have a right to a trial by jury, and to have ordinary citizens sit on that jury, consider the evidence, and decide what the right outcome is under the applicable law. So I'm happy to have you here. I'm happy that you've gone through this process. I'm excited to hear what you all have to say, to hear not only what you've learned, but what your opinions are about it, and to see the great leaders who are going to be going forward, at least in part because of going through this program. So thank you so much, and have a great day.